Do you think you know what it means not to judge? Think again. Somewhere right now, someone is sitting alone, ashamed, crushed under the weight of judgment, maybe from their family, their community, their church, maybe from you, and maybe, just maybe, that you've been on the receiving end too. Have you ever felt people look at you like you were less, whisper about you, decide who you are before you even open your mouth? It burns, doesn't it? But what if I told you that judgment is not what you think it is? Jesus didn't say, do not judge, and leave it at that. No, he took it even further. He gave us something better to do instead. And that's what most people miss. So today, we're going to dig into what Jesus really meant. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand why judging others is dangerous. You'll know the radical thing you should do instead. And once you do, your life and relationships will never be the same. Let's go straight to the words of Jesus. Matthew 7:1-2 says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." Now here's where we get it wrong. Most people think judging is about deciding on right and wrong. It's not. Judgment is a trap, a mindset that separates us from God. It says, I see your flaws, but not my own. I see your mistakes, but I ignore mine. I see your brokenness, but I refuse to admit that I'm broken too. That's the real issue. Judgment blinds us, and Jesus knew that. That's why, right after saying, do not judge, he told us a parable about the speck and the plank. In Matthew 7:3-5, Jesus said, "Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First, take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." Jesus isn't just calling out hypocrisy, he's showing us that judgment distorts reality. When you focus on someone else's flaws, you magnify them while shrinking your own. But if you dare to look in the mirror, if you have the courage to confront your own brokenness first, you start seeing others differently, with more grace, more compassion, more understanding. And that leads us to the real question. If we're not supposed to judge, what do we do instead? The answer is shocking. It's uncomfortable. It's the last thing we want to hear. We love. Jesus didn't say, do not judge, and leave us clueless. Instead, he replaced judgment with something that takes more strength, more wisdom, more courage, radical sacrificial love. Let me show you something powerful. In John 8, a woman was caught in adultery. The religious leaders dragged her into the streets, threw her at Jesus' feet, and demanded she be stoned. They didn't care about her. She was just an object for their judgment, a tool to trap Jesus. Now, Jesus could have launched into a lecture. He could have condemned her. Instead, he did something unexpected. He bent down and wrote in the dirt. And then he spoke the words that stopped everyone in their tracks. "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." John 8:7. Silence. One by one, they left. And when they were gone, Jesus turned to the woman and said, "Then neither do I condemn you. Go now and leave your life of sin." John 8:11. Did you catch that? He didn't say, "What you did is fine." He didn't ignore her sin. He saw it, but instead of judgment, he gave her grace. This is what we're called to do. Here's the hard truth. Judgment is easy. Love is hard. It's easy to look at someone and say, they should know better. It's easy to label someone based on their past, their mistakes, their struggles. But love requires something deeper. Jesus said in John 13:34 and 35, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." Notice he didn't say, "By this everyone will know you are my disciples, if you correct one another," or "if you point out every wrong." No, Love is the mark of a follower of Christ. So here's the question. What would happen if, instead of judging, we started loving people the way Jesus did? What if, instead of condemning, we walked alongside people in their struggles? What if we showed mercy, even when we think someone doesn't deserve it? Because here's what is true: none of us deserve it. But Jesus gave it anyway. Let me give you 4 powerful insights you may not have considered. When judgment invites judgment, Matthew 7:2 isn't just about heaven, it's about life. The way you treat others will come back to you. Want mercy? Show mercy. Want grace? Give it. 2. Loving others doesn't mean ignoring sin. Jesus never excused sin, but he also never used it to shame people. Instead, he offered truth with love, not against it. 3. We will be judged by how we love. In Matthew 25, Jesus talks about the final judgment, and guess what? The question isn't, did you judge correctly? It's, did you feed the hungry, clothe the naked, care for the sick, love the least of these? 4 real transformation starts with self-examination. If you want to see real change in others, start with yourself. The more you confront your own flaws, the more patience you'll have with others. So, Jesus said, do not judge. What do we do instead? We look in the mirror first. We recognize that we are just as broken as the people we're tempted to condemn. And instead of judgment, we choose something far more powerful: love, mercy, grace, truth wrapped in compassion. Because the truth is, people don't need more judgment, they need to see Jesus, and the best way to show him: love first.